From a young age, Miyazaki has been my favorite director. Not just anime director, not just animation director, but just favorite director. His work is so magical, it is so thought-provoking, it is so warm to the heart. I love his work like no other. I have so many positive memories and I learnt so much from his movies. It's ridiculous. So with that said, I thought I would do a quick video in tribute to Miyazaki, my favorite film director of all time, and talk about his 11 full-length releases and rank them from worst to best in my own opinion and how much I love them. I just want to preface this with that I love all his movies. Ranking them doesn't mean that number 11 is trash or that number 1 is god tier. They're all amazing movies and I think worth seeing. It's just that I also obviously have my own preference for what I think is the best of the best. So with that said, number 11 on my list is The Wind Rises. This is his latest release. I was very excited when this came out because Miyazaki has a thing he likes to do where he likes to say, I'm going into retirement, bye, and then next minute there's rumors that he's making another movie. So this was happening and I thought that he was done. I thought he wasn't making anything more, and then he came out of retirement and came out with this movie. So of course I was so excited about it, but with that being said, I just feel like maybe the magic is not as much there with this movie. It's more grounded in real life. It just didn't really feel like it had the same magical spark that I look for with other Miyazaki movies where they really take me to another place. This movie was fun, but not magical. Next, number 10, we have Totoro. I know a lot of people are going to be very confused to why this is so low on my list. With this, I would say that I still give Totoro a 7 out of 10. Anything that is a 7 or above, I would recommend and think it's like a very good movie. I just love every other movie so much that he's put out that this one just happens to end up in number 10 slot. Totoro is very fun, I will say that, and it has a lot of messages about death and family and about dealing with grief, and that's all well and good and definitely something I appreciate about this film, but at the same time I just don't feel like I learnt much from this film. I don't feel like this film taught me as much about life as some other Miyazaki films have, and it didn't have as much of a profound impact on me growing up because it is a more light-hearted film and I definitely prefer Miyazaki for his more dark stuff, as we will see. With that being said, the next movie is Ponyo. Ponyo I feel really similar as Totoro with. It sort of just sits in the same ballpark with me at a 7. They both are very light-hearted and fun. I just don't feel like as an adult you can appreciate Ponyo as much as maybe some of his other films. The characters for me in this movie, not so memorable in my opinion, and there's not as many moments in this movie that really stuck out to me as being so impactful. But still, I really do love this movie. There's so many cute moments. I love Ponyo. Ponyo is so cute. And her relationship with Sasuke is so damn cute, dude. This is the first movie I saw in cinemas from Miyazaki and it was beautiful on screen. The animation is stunning. Don't know how to pronounce this, but number 8, we have The Castle of Cagliostro, I think it's called. This is Miyazaki's first full-length feature that he released. It doesn't have a Joe Hisaishi soundtrack. It doesn't have the beautiful animation maybe that some of the later films do. It doesn't have the full force of Ghibli behind this movie, but I still really appreciate this movie because it was the start of something great. It shows so many promising and really exciting things from Miyazaki in this film, and I would highly recommend this as a must watch, and I feel like it definitely doesn't get the praise that it deserves. There's amazing scenes in this movie, such as the car chase. That scene of animation is amazing. You can see the influence of his first film and where he was going with that and what he wanted to do with this film come into fruition in later movies. Really love this movie. This movie is an 8 for me. I feel like the magic's there. I feel like this is slightly for an older audience as well, which I appreciate for some reason. His movies that are for more mature age. This is just a preference I have though. I know that a lot of people would obviously put Totoro top 3 number 1 or Ponyo top 3, but I just have a preference for his works that are just can be appreciated a bit more as an adult. And here is where it gets really tricky. I am going to put Nausicaa at number 7. Nausicaa is his second release after The Castle of Cagliostro. Here I feel like he really comes into his own. That's why I really appreciate this film. I also grew up on this film. I watched this a lot growing up. There's way more depressing things happening in this one. There's a lot more influence of war and of death and destruction in this film, which is something I think think Miyazaki does so well and portrays so well as something digestible for younger viewers. And I think that's where he really stands out, showing things that usually you wouldn't be able to show a kid, but he shows it in a way that a kid is able to understand. So this is his first movie with a Joe Hisaishi soundtrack as well, and I really appreciate Joe Hisaishi's soundtracks. And yeah, I feel like here we start to really get into these movies that can be watched as an adult and you can really appreciate quite a lot about them. I would give this film a strong 9. I was just editing this video and realized I totally forgot one of his movies. What? Kiki's Delivery Service. This is another 9 out of 10 for me. However, I would say it's actually pretty interchangeable with the other 9s that are on this list. This movie is very cute. I would say that this is one of the most cohesive movies that Miyazaki has ever released. The storyline fits together so nicely, wrapped up in a little ball. Whenever you watch this movie, it flies by so quickly, no pun intended, as this movie is about a witch. Yeah, this movie, I feel like it flows so nicely, so easily. Before you know it, the hour and a half is up. It's a coming of age movie, I would say, with magical elements in it. It's got identity and discovering yourself and love and friendship, and it's about this young girl discovering all these things and discovering who she is and who she wants to become. There's a lot of funny moments in this movie, and the soundtrack is quite happy. The storyline is quite happy, actually. I would say that this is one of the lighter films that Miyazaki's brought out. Lots of beautiful shots in this movie, lots of beautiful color. It's very heartwarming, a movie that will put you in a good mood no matter what. Even as I'm talking about it right now, I've just got one of the soundtracks playing in my head, just the do 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 do. I'm going to put Laputa at number 5. Laputa, Castle in the Sky. This was his third release. This is pretty much on the edge of where I think Miyazaki really is at peak god tier Miyazaki. We're just about to start seeing it with this film. This film has a lot of themes about power, about greed, and I just learnt so much from this film growing up about the things about life that aren't so great, that are a bit more ugly, and learning about human consciousness and what is good and what is not. This soundtrack is to die for. I think this is one of my favorite soundtracks from Joe Hisaishi here. And I also think that the ending is really good, and I think there's also quite a lot of characters here that are very memorable and super funny. Yeah, you start to see a bit of humor come in with this one, I think, which I really appreciated. I give Laputa a strong 9. So the last film within the 9 out of 10s would be Howl's Moving Castle. I have read the book for this. Really like the book, the source material. This movie really shows how much inspiration he finds from source material. He's able to take something and then just explode it, blows it into like something way bigger than it ever was, to read something and then to like watch it on screen. Sometimes it feels like a movie is just a ghost of whatever the source material is, but that never happens with Miyazaki films. He always brings his own spice and his own inspiration to a film and makes it more than it already was and makes it his own. And this really shows with this film, I think, where he really brings some heart to the story and to these characters. This movie is about love. It's a love story. I don't usually love romance. I don't usually like love in movies. I don't like happy stuff. I think he tells a beautiful love story here though, and he makes love bearable for even me, and absolutely beautiful. Once again, I think there's a beautiful cast of characters in this. Calcifer is legendary. Once again, amazing soundtrack, amazing animation. His animation really starts to show here. I think that the animation from Studio Ghibli in this film is just vibrant. It's just, it pops on screen. And I also think that this film once again ties in love, war, magic, greed, and friendship even. Like, it's gonna be easily one of the films that I have to show any kid that I pop out later in life. Next, we enter the 10 out of 10s. I, just for context, have given like 20 movies in my life a 10 out of 10 score, and I've watched many movies. These 3 movies, I couldn't recommend any more. So with that being said, number 3 is Spirited Away. Spirited Away is, I mean, everyone knows about it. Spirited Away is a masterpiece. It is a modern classic in film, especially animation. I think this is one of the best animated films of all time, objectively. So growing up, when I first found my love for Studio Ghibli and for Miyazaki, this was the movie I discovered first. I watched it when I was around 8 years old, and I just thought it was like nothing else I had ever seen. When you're a kid and you're watching kid shows and kid movies, and then suddenly you watch something like Spirited Away, it blows your mind. Miyazaki's films are full of magic, right? They're full of magical realism, but at the same time, it feels more realistic and more true to life and emotion than something that is just based in pure reality on TV. Sometimes I feel like TV really brushes over things. It really brushes over certain emotions that they don't want kids to feel, or themes that they don't want kids to hear. Miyazaki's films don't do that. Miyazaki's films bring this sense of nuance and subtlety to these emotions and themes that Miyazaki wants to get across to his younger viewers, and he does it in such a good way, and it shows so much in this film. This film is a must-watch for anyone and a must-watch for kids, I think. This movie changed me as a kid, and I think it really set the scene for my movie taste in general forever. I cannot rate this any more highly than I already do because the other two are just so good and I can't wait to get to them. Also, it should be noted that this was my number one spot for Miyazaki's movies for a really long time, and it then swapped over to my next one. So my number 2 spot is Princess Mononoke. This was my number 1 for Miyazaki movies for the longest time, for about 5 years, in my later teen years. I think that shows a lot about this movie. This movie is definitely a movie that is connected to the more sad, depressed souls of life. There is so much depressing stuff in this movie, it hurts. I think the only other Studio Ghibli movie, which I'm talking about Miyazaki movies, but Studio Ghibli movies that could relate to how sad this is would be Grave of the Fireflies, which is so sad. But this is also in the same ballpark of having a lot of themes that is just so depressing and so mortifying on screen to watch. If you really pay attention and realize what you're looking at, it is actually horrifying. And that's what's so good about it, is that it just really confronts you with the terrors of war. And you don't watch that as a kid. This movie definitely, I think, is the one that feels most like a quest to me. And I really appreciate a quest story. Watching someone get up and leave, have to go somewhere, have to achieve something, learn about himself, change in the process. This movie is beautiful when you look at the story arc that is created with the main protagonist in this story. Very beautiful. Also, the animation is stunning in this movie, and some of the scenes are just ridiculously intense and so heartbreaking. And for that, I have to give it the number 2 spot, just because the amount it makes me feel is just off the charts. And here we come to my number 1. This movie is in my top 3 movies of all time. It is my favorite animated movie. It is none other than Porco Rosso. You wouldn't expect this to be, especially for someone that's so diehard fan as me, for it to be in your number 1 spot. But here we are. This is what's happening. The main reason that I love this movie so much is that it is a love story, but it's so much more than that as well. Like, when you look at Porco Rosso, you see on the surface a love story. It's about this war veteran that has PTSD. It's about him trying to deal with that, and also about his relationship with this woman. However, if you take all that plot away, what you're actually looking at the core is a movie about identity and about acceptance. And those are so important to understand in life, especially if you've gone through anything that is traumatic. This movie will speak to you, I think. It's not super digestible, I will give you that. Like, a lot of people don't like this movie. It's boring, it's whatever. However, if you give it the time of day and you realize what it's trying to do, and you look at between the lines, it has so many layers. How Miyazaki deals with war and PTSD in this movie is beyond me. And watching Porco deal with his identity and his grief and trying to accept himself is so beautiful. It is so heartwarming, and I just feel so much for this character. I am so connected to Porco on like an emotional level. I think he is such a deep character. For that, I have to give the number 1 spot. It does so much for me. I also want to say that once again, the animation is beautiful, but does that even need to be said? It's a Miyazaki movie. Of course the animation is beautiful. I feel like you really are in peak Miyazaki in the 1990s. You have Porco Rosso in 1992, you have Mononoke in 1997, and then you have Spirited Away in 2001. You really can't go wrong with that decade, in my opinion. Hopefully you get something out of this video, whether it's that you've already seen all of them and you want to discuss with me what you think and what is your favorite Miyazaki movie, or you got a recommendation out of this video of where to go for some amazing anime, amazing films in general. I just can't stop gushing about this because he is my favorite director for a reason. He is amazing. You need to go watch him if you haven't. Anyway, with that, thanks for watching. I just filmed a video about all my intimidating books on my TBR, and it made me so sad because I was just talking about books that I don't want to read but that I have to read. And now to do this video, it's really lightened me up and made me feel a bit better talking about something I love so much. I really want to go watch Miyazaki movies now. And it should be noted, all his movies are now on Netflix, so you have no reason not to go watch him. It needs to happen, please. Or just watch any Ghibli, just do something good for yourself.